Hey folks, back again to talk to you about the next block of Steven Universe episodes. This week, talking about episodes 30 through 32. This was overall a good block. Did not get off to a good start, but it more than made up for it by the end. Wow. Let's just dive in with episode 30, Island Adventure, which I think is the first time I just straight up disliked an episode. It was Lars heavy, which is already a big strike against it. And he just spent the whole thing being a colossal jerk. And then it turned out it was all because Sadie was being a colossal jerk. And then she saved him, and that made it okay. Which, no, it really doesn't. Yeah. I don't get what this episode was going for. I don't get why they thought we wanted more Lars-centric stuff. He's terrible, and I hate him. And he's not funny. He's not interesting. He's not appealing. He is, in fact, an exceedingly boring and common character. And Sadie's crush on him is just depressing. And the depths to which she is now sinking out of that crush are even more depressing. Trapping them all on the island for what seemed to be weeks, that's messed up. That's like a really singularly awful thing to do. Which, cue debates over, whether Lars' continual low-key awfulness matches up to Sadie's kind of massive singular awfulness, but I don't think it matters. I think the point is, they're both kind of awful. Sadie, at least, made a choice to do a massively awful thing, but seems to be generally an okay person overall. She just needs to not do things like that anymore. Lars, it's his personality that's the problem with Lars. He is a jerk. He is selfish, has a temper, very entitled, very easily frustrated when things don't go his way. He takes that out on other people. Consistently. He's a jerk. The bit where he refuses to help and just expects that they will provide him with food, which they do. He exploits other people. He's terrible. And those few in-between moments of being slightly less terrible, they don't cut it. He needs, a complete, turnaround, and that just, I don't see as being likely to happen. Especially with episodes like this, where, he gets, it gets to be Sadie's fault. Yeah, I just didn't like it. There wasn't anything fun or funny in it, and I don't like any of the characters involved in it. Except Steven, obviously, but he was pretty peripheral. And even he was being really obnoxious during it, sitting around and watching them. Which, okay, yeah, that's him being all innocent and not knowing when privacy is expected, but anyway, let's move on to an episode I did like, because after that episode, I had kind of a sour taste in my mouth. I was like, okay, there needs to be something really good to make up for this, and thankfully there was, because, wow, Keep Beach City Weird was great. I loved how, I never quite got the guy's name, but the conspiracy theorist from the Fry Shop, how he had to link together this massive conspiracy people. Oh, and now I know the origin of the snake people or Sneeple meme. Yay. I'd assumed that was just Tumblr being weird. I guess it comes from Steven Universe. But, I mean, obviously it was a reference to the lizard people of the guy whose name I'm blanking out on, but that believes that Earth is being controlled by lizard people who infiltrated, the government and replaced key people. You can look it up. This is a real conspiracy theory. Anyway, and I liked how, it was completely unflinching about where conspiracy theories come from, because that's exactly it. That is the psychology of the conspiracy theory, is people want to feel special, they want to feel important, they want to feel like the world revolves around them, so they make up vast conspiracies that they are on the verge of uncovering. And, every bit of evidence against the conspiracy becomes proof that the conspiracy, is afraid of them and putting up smoke screens. In other words, proof of how important they are. Every bit of evidence, there's never any real evidence for it, but everything that could be twisted to mean something for it. I love when he's describing, truth is a feeling in your heart, and you go searching for things that confirm what you believe, and so on and so forth. And Stephen's like, that sounds like the opposite of truth. Well, yes, it is, but it feels good. It feels good to feel that you have discovered the secret workings of the world unknown to others, that you're in on something, that you're part of something bigger than yourself. I loved Pearl and Amethyst being completely dismissive about it, too. Oh, well, humans lead short, meaningless lives, so this is how they entertain themselves. It's kind of sad, but also funny, which, again, true. And this is a kid's show doing this. I love that, because kids should be getting told, your life is meaningless, and it's kind of sad, but also funny. Because it's easier to deal with that kind of discovery when you're a kid and haven't built up a lot of momentum to smack into the brick wall later in life. Warp kids a bit so that they can deal with the world. And, the way that everything they did to try to make him feel better after they, shattered his world and revealed the meaninglessness of it all, that his conspiracy was wrong, everything they did just made it worse when they tried to make him feel better. And I loved that too, let's play into his conspiracy theory. No. Bad move. He rapidly turns, dangerous. Which, again, hey, real life. Anti-vaxxers are now responsible for quite a lot of deaths, particularly in California. With the whole Disneyland thing. That's just one example. There's been plenty of other cases where, in particular, conspiracy theories and anti-Semitism have a long history that go together. Conspiracy theories and racist violence, more broadly. I mean, anti-Semitism in particular, but racist violence in general often has its ties to conspiracy theories. Fascism and conspiracy theories have strong, underlying ties. Because there's the whole stab-in-the-back conspiracy myth that is found in a lot of fascist ideology. Conspiracy theories are dangerous, and to paraphrase XKCD, they're a known flaw in human thought processes. Nobody is immune to them. Anybody can fall into that trap, and it's only careful, critical thinking that can keep you out of it. If at any time you start to honestly believe that there is some great cosmic truth that is waiting to be uncovered and you are at the heart of it all, check that. That's unlikely to be true, because there's 7 billion of us, which means none of us can be that important. Nothing that there's 7 billion of can be that important on an individual basis. So, was a really fun episode. I mean, I make it sound maybe a little bit bleak. It was actually really funny and really fun and tons of energy. And, like, here we had a character who was completely wrong and rapidly became kind of dangerous, but was also really fun. And the whole episode was a lot of fun. The bit where Steven disguises himself as a snake person, or Snurson, was great. I'm now wondering if there's going to be something later with Sneeple or Snail People, like some kind of rival blog or something. Oh, which brings me to my favorite part of the episode at the end, where he realizes the missing piece of the puzzle. Polymorphic rock people, or however we put it. I think it was polymorphic rock people. That's basically what the gems are. They're living rocks that can take multiple human forms, or other living forms. So he's kind of accidentally got the reality of it. I will be both annoyed and amused if it turns out that the other gems that they're fighting actually did want to steal the Earth's core. That would be pretty great. But also, I don't really want this character to get validated because we've seen how dangerous he gets when he is, and I like that. So, you know. Just remember that in real life, you know, there are many well-documented real-life conspiracies where people have actually gotten together and, you know, worked together in secret. And the thing that they all have in common is incompetence and failure. You know, people tend to be, you know, people. The more people it takes to keep a secret, the harder it gets to keep, which means the more powerful you imagine your conspiracy being, you very rapidly get snowballing ridiculousness of how many people have to be in on it and how perfectly in lockstep they all have to be at all times, and it pretty quickly becomes obvious that it's complete nonsense. You know, remember, we managed to keep the secret, you know, possibly the most important conspiracy of the 20th century, the Manhattan Project, kept it secret for basically no time at all. The Russians had, like, the secret of making the bomb before the first test bombings. You know, human beings are not good at conspiracies and secrets. We're just not. Of course, I would say that, seeing as I'm in on it. Anyway, so after that episode, I was like, okay, that was great. They're not going to top that. Oh, they topped that. Because Fusion Cuisine, great title, by the way. Fusion Cuisine was amazing. I loved everything about it. From Under the Knife, which was just hilarious as this, you know, over-the-top drama. That we only ever heard, we never saw. How did his legs get in his brain is an excellent question that should always be asked. To, you know, the ridiculous solution of having a fusion pose as Steven's mom. To the dinner itself, which managed to take all the awkwardness of the Meet the Family's dinner and escalate it by having a 40-foot-tall, 6-armed, 3-mouthed woman being one of the guests. And yeah, it was just end-to-end fun. But at the same time, there was some real stuff going on under the real character stuff, because, I mean, it's not an unfamiliar situation to me. Excuse me. Sorry about that, I've been a bit sick. Because, so, my first real relationship, like the first one where it wasn't just dating, where there was, like, talk of the future sometimes, was in college. I think is when many people have their first, like, relationship like that. And it was basically the reason it ended, or at least the reason that she gave for ending it, was that she did not believe her parents would ever approve of my parents. Meaning my mother and the woman who would eventually be her wife once that became legal. Because at the time it was not yet legal anywhere in the U.S. As soon as it was, they went and got married. So, kind of a similar thing, non-traditional family and fears of parental disapproval, except the truth is that was an excuse. It was a convenient excuse, because what it really was projecting her own anxieties onto that. And that wasn't the entirety of the reason we broke up. There were lots of reasons in hindsight. But I think she was uncomfortable. And I think that's true of Connie, too. I think Connie is afraid of being seen as not normal. I think that's why she keeps the glasses. Because she's afraid of having to explain what happened and being seen as not normal. I think she's afraid of, because as we see, her parents are completely accepting of the Gems once they see that they are good parents to Stephen. That's all they really care about. But Connie is afraid that they will reject her friendship with Stephen, and by extension reject her as being strange because his family is strange. She's obsessed with this idea of normality, as many, many people in our culture are. They divide the world into normal, which is whatever they're used to, and not normal, which is everything else. And everything not normal gets labeled as bad, except when it gets labeled as exotic and they sell porn of it. And that's really kind of a bullshit way of looking at the world. And it's completely alien to Stephen, who has no concept of normal. For Stephen, there's just life and people. And there's difference, but he doesn't label one side of the difference normal and the other weird. He is completely accepting of Connie and her family, even though from his perspective, they're not what he's used to. He doesn't even know what a nuclear family is. He thinks it's, radioactive. Which does raise the question of, are there any gems for, radioactive materials? Whatever. Anyway, Connie's got issues with that, and part of that probably does come from her parents being fairly judgmental. They do seem, quite strict and stern, and that, and possibly, very judgmental. So that's probably where she learned it, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying her fear is without basis. I'm just saying that it is her fear, and she should, be the one to take ownership of it. Especially when it turns out to be, not the case. I'm actually curious whether Stephen needs to eat. He's part human, but he's also a gem. So, who knows whether he needs to eat. Certainly he seems to have a more human relationship to food than the other gems do. But the punishment of 1,000 years with no dinner is pretty great. I highly doubt they will stick to the 1,000 years of no television. I don't think we will, have no episodes in which Stephen watches television ever again, especially given the, skill with which they parody television shows, because Under the Knife was just a great parody of, medical dramas. Do they still, are medical dramas still a big thing? They were really big a few years ago, you know, when you had the tail end of ER, and then you had House and Grey's Anatomy and stuff like that. Are those still going? I honestly have no idea. I never hear anything about them. Seems like shows about superheroes have taken over. Anyway, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. This was a good, like I said, episode 30 kind of stank, but episodes 31 and 32 were some of the best so far. 32 I would even label as possibly the best so far. So I'm rolling on through, still having a blast, still enjoying this. And I'll see you all next week with the next block of episodes. Thanks. Bye.